We're standing next to the hull of Medallia and work is really progressing fast on our big refit and the change to big foils. So let's look at some of the key features that have happened in the last week. So most notably here, you can see there's a patch on the hull. So this is where we're covering up the old foil exit. When we change to new foils, big foils, we're going to have them further forward in the boat. So we're going to have to cut new holes out in the side of the boat for the foils to come out of, which means we need to make good the old holes. So what you can see here is the vacuum bag. What happens when we patch up the boat with carbon is we kind of lay up the sandwich of the boat, so the skin, the foam, and then the skin, and then use a vacuum pump to infuse the resin. So it's drawing resin through the whole structure, and that's making sure that we get an even spread of resin through the whole patch. That's been done already, and what you can see here is the vacuum bag over the finished piece, so that'll be coming off later this week. Okay, so now let's move forward to the bow. Now the reason we've got the tent here is because when we're working with the carbon, or when the team from Carrington's are working with the carbon, they just need to elevate the temperature a little bit to make sure that it goes off hard. And during the last week they were laminating this section of the bow, and during the day, obviously never leave the heat on overnight, but during the day they just brought the temperature up in this little section to help the resin go off, because it is quite cold at the moment. So this is, you can see our new bow section really taking shape here. Now we've had a lot of questions about what we're doing to the bow, and essentially we're not doing any massive changes to it. So the volume, the main volume up here, and the shape of it on the top kind of half towards the deck is not changing. But what we've done is really just cut away this bottom section. So the old bow profile kind of came out more like this and then went bluntly upwards. So what we've done is just remove that whole section there, put a little bit of shape on the bottom here. But we've worked quite smart here, because you know, we're working to a budget, and it's a time budget as well as a money budget. And of course, the more you change the shape of this, then the more building work you have to do. And so your costs and the time it's going to take goes up and up and up. Now, we only had the budget to be able to do a relatively small modification to the bow. And one of the things that has been great is that we have underneath here, we've managed to retain the original structure and fixing point for the bobstay. So that's the rope that goes from the bow to the end of the bowsprit. And when I've got my big off-wind sails up, that rope is holding the bowsprit down as they're pulling the bowsprit up. Obviously that takes a huge amount of load. So for us to be able to keep the existing structure inside here for that bobstay has saved a lot of extra work, so that's great. And the main difference really you see is this cutaway. And the idea with this is that with the new foils, with the old foils, but also with the new foils, I'm actually going to be quite rapidly catching up waves. So you kind of break over the top of a wave, and then you're going faster than the wave, so you catch up the wave in front. And what was happening with the old blunt bows was we were catching up the wave in front and just ploughing straight into it, and then the boat was stopping. Now the idea with this kind of lift up towards the stem head is that as I catch up that wave of front, actually the boat rides up over the top of the wave instead of just ploughing into it. And so hopefully that's just going to keep my speed a little bit more constant and stop those sudden decelerations when I smack into waves. We're keeping the crash section, so there's a crash bulkhead up here and then another bulkhead further back, and we've kept all of that original structure inside the boat. It's really just this bottom section that we're changing. We're quite far down the route here, so there's just a bit more shaping to go on here. So let's just pop up on deck now, have a look inside at what's going on. We're up on the deck now, and this is the most alarming part of the work that we're doing. Obviously we've cut a huge section of the deck out here, and that's so that we can get proper access into the boat for the foil cases which are going in, but also we've got an additional bulkhead that's going in. Now, the important thing to remember about the modifications we're making to the boat is that we're going to make it more powerful. And in making it more powerful, we have needed to take great care in understanding the extra load and force that's going through the hull and making sure that we have extra structure and strength inside the boat to support the big foils outside. And part of that is putting a new bulkhead in. So the bulkheads are the walls that they're the walls that go laterally across the boat, and they separate it into spaces, and they tie everything together and provide strength through the hull. And we're having an extra bulkhead going in, which is part of the reason why we've cut the deck out. Down here at the moment, you can see on the outside, we'd covered up the old exit holes for the foils, and the guys down here from Carrington's at the moment are preparing to cut the holes for the new foils, where the new foils will exit. So at the moment we can see they've got the drawing stuck up on the bulkheads, that's their reference guide. They've got a laser level out. Obviously this needs to be millimetre right, so making sure that all of these marks are in the right place is essential. And the start of that process was actually when the boat came into the shed. There was a lot of time and effort spent making sure that the boat was straight and level, so that we had a proper datum point to work from for all of these measurements. Because you imagine if the boat's just slightly over to one side, and all the measurements that we're making down below are in relation to the inside of the boat, and with a laser level, then you could have kind of one side slightly out from the other. So at the moment, lots of blue tapes going on, and these guys are marking out where to cut the holes for the new foil exit. So it's been another week of really impressive progress. We still have a long way to go, and one of the things that I find kind of quite difficult is the fact that it all comes apart so easily, but putting it together takes a lot more time. But it's exciting to see this tangible progress being made. Still, we're aiming to be out of the shed at the end of April. The new foils will arrive from France in May, and we'll be putting them into the boat. First sail hopefully at the end of May. There is a lot of work to do between now and then, but I think we're on it, and I'm looking forward to sharing regular updates with you over the coming months.